The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be looking at how we can work with our new sales invoicing module. Okay, so the session will be recorded and the session should last approximately between 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, so my name's Karen Carbon and I'll be guiding you through all the sales invoicing aspects, and it's going to be today on Neo sales invoicing, so the new look and feel. So we've got invoicing, which we'll be looking at, our customers, we've got articles, timelines, and also working with your templates. Okay, so we're going to go straight into the Twinfield new look and feel. Okay, so now that I've logged into Twinfield, right at the top, I've actually just clicked on my side menu and I've hovered down to the sales area. So the first thing we want to do is to look at how do we go about creating an invoice. So if I just click on my invoice tab, and this is just going to give us an overview of the sales invoice desktop. So you can see that there have been some invoices which have been created, but there's a whole host of other things that we can do as well. We will be looking at some of our related items. And in this screen, whatever your preference is, you have under related items to create a new invoice, or just by clicking the little plus button on the tile. So I'm just going to click new on the tile and it's going to open up my sales invoice for me. So the first thing it's going to prompt me to do is to select one of my customers. So I can go in, select my customer, and it populates it with the address details. And then if I click on the tab key, it will take me into the invoice number field where I can just enter in the date. So I've just selected the date as being the 9th. If you need to add in any additional reference numbers or a delivery date, you can add that information in. Also, if your invoices are quite lengthy and quite wordy, sometimes it would be quite nice to actually just use the introductory text box, which I've just clicked into. So just to say it was membership, you could actually put the membership in and the time frame. So I can just type in this box to say that it's a monthly membership. And then I can just put in the period that it spans from. So I can just say the period was from January the 1st to the 31st, for example. And then I can go in and click in the quantity. So if it's a case it's a monthly subscription and it's just one, there's no need. But if this is done on a weekly basis, I can actually just add in 4 for it to be 4 weekly. Okay, so I'm going to leave my quantity blank and I'm going to go straight into the description field. So if you've created any articles which are could be a mixture of products and services, they will be listed for you. Or you can just free type in the description field. So I'm just going to type in here, this is monthly membership. So the next thing, let's tab into the price field, and I'm just going to put in the price of £50. And then I have my VAT option, so I can choose the different rates of VAT. So I'm just going to leave mine as 0 rated. And then next to the VAT, you also have a delete icon. So if the line that you're working on is no longer needed, you can throw it away. If you need to add in another line, you simply click the plus line option and it will produce another line for you. So I'm just going to now delete that line and it cleanly takes it away. So here we have our VAT being displayed as exclusive. So you can see that it gives us a total and it also gives us the amount which would be VATable and the total. You also have the option to put in some clothing text. So if you want that invoice payable by a certain date, or you want to add in some bank details, if it's not already on your template, you can add that information in. You also have the option to add or attach, should I say, some documentation. So if there was a bit of extra information that went along with the membership, could be some terms and conditions if it's the first time or the first month's membership, you could actually just click on the paperclip and that would open up your Windows Explorer where you can navigate and browse to the document, the same as if you were working on a Word or an Excel file. You have the different options for your VAT on how you would like it displayed on your invoice. So we can click on the VAT, and at the moment I have mine to excluded, but if you want it included, then you can see it kind of just simplifies the total for you. But if you like to see a breakdown, then you can actually just have it set to excluded. So if this invoice is going to recur either on a monthly, quarterly or yearly basis, you can just click this icon here and it will give you the option to repeat every month, every quarter or every year. So I'm going to select every month. So you can see now that it's put a tick to say that I do have a recurrence set against this invoice. So we have our little buttons down the bottom. We've got cancel, create, and then we've got our send options. So the two send options that we have is to send as a PDF or send as a link. So my preference is always to send it as a link, and when we look at the timelines, you'll see why. So I'm going to choose the option to send email as a link. And once it's updated and it's sent the invoice, it will just take me back to the main menu. But if this is the first time you are creating an invoice in your company, it will ask you where would you like the number to start from. So if you've come from another piece of software and you've already been using sales invoices, you might want to use the next number in the sequence. So all you would do is just type in what the next sequence number is. And then just click Set Invoice Number. Okay, and once that invoice has been sent, you get directed straight back to the sales invoice desktop. Okay, so if I go back in and click into my invoice, we can see down the left-hand side, we have a nice little timeline building up for us. So we can see who's created the invoice. It also tells me that the invoice is going to recur every month. Tells me where the invoice has actually been sent to and who it's been posted by. I have the chance to either cancel, to go back to the main menu, to credit the invoice, and then I also have an option to mark as paid or mark as part paid. Okay, so those two options, they do not update the financials. It could just be that your client or your customer is working on the software and they don't have access to the financials, but purely for their tracking purposes, they want to be able to have the functionality to mark an invoice as paid or partially paid. So they have the option to do this. But once they go in and they post the bank statement, then it will actually give you a confirmation saying that transaction has been paid. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark this invoice as paid, and you'll see that it has now a little paid status. So now you can see that I've got some more icons which have appeared down the bottom of the page. So I still have my print option, and I also have the option to duplicate the transaction. And for internal purposes, if you do need to add any comments, you can add a comment on the invoice. So if I click into the comments box, I can actually just type in and just say this was paid by CC, which is credit card, and then just click add, and that's going to add that comment to my timeline. If I've made a mistake, I can mark the invoice as unpaid. I can also credit the invoice as well. So this can be a full credit or it can be partially credited. So right at the top where I've got my paid status, I've got my icon for reoccurrence, and if I click on the drop down, it would just give me these options to say that it's been marked as paid. And when we go through and we make a payment for this invoice for the Pioneer, you will see that the confirmed will actually be stamped against this invoice as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and just post a payment against this invoice. Okay, so if I go down now to my cash and banks area, and I can go in just to manual bank data entry, and I'm just going to select my bank. Okay, so we're going to say that we have received this £50 from the Pioneer, so I'm just going to add £50 onto that total. And on the date, I'm going to put down the date that I received the payment as being the 10th of February. So in the customer and supply field, I'm going to just type in the Pioneer. And I'm just going to use the amount of £50 to say that I've received it, and I can just click on my invoice finder. So I can see my line of my invoice here. So if I just make that a little bit bigger and just click on save. And I'm going to post this as final. Okay, so we're going to head back into our sales invoicing area. And I just want to go back in and have a look now at the status of this invoice. So we can see that it's actually moved to our paid area. So if I click into it once more, and if I click back onto the invoice, okay, we can see that our payment amount has now been updated, and where we have the status as paid, it's now confirmed. And if we just click on the drop down, you can see here that now it's confirmed because it's hit the financials. All right, so the next thing we're going to have a look at is our customers. So I'm just going to go back to my main sales menu, or you can choose to click the hyperlink at the top and it will take you back to the same area. So if I click into my customer, and I'm going to pick on again my customer, the Pioneer. So you can either just use your scroll bar down the side or just type in the search. So I've got two companies here which start with the, so I can now just click into the Pioneer. And once that record comes up on the screen for me, it will just display all of my preferences. So here I can see that where I'm going to send the invoice, my preference is to send as a link. But if a link doesn't work for them, you can actually default it per customer to either send it as a PDF. And if I scroll down to payment conditions, you can actually default how you would like the VAT displayed on the screen for every customer. So if I want it simplified and I want the VAT to be included, then I can actually just toggle on that option. And once I save, every single time I create my invoice for my customer, it will show the VAT on the invoice as being a more simplified view. So I'll just make a change and I've just clicked save and it takes me back to my customer. Okay, so how about if I want to create an article for membership? So once again, if I click back on my hyperlink at the top, or you might refer to it as a breadcrumb trail, click on sales, and this time I have my articles. So I can either click on the articles to display my list or click on plus article. But if I click on articles, I will have a related area which will take me back for me to create a brand new article. So this time my article is going to be called membership. And I'm going to go through and just pick my amount that's being 0 rated and just put down the the rate of my membership is £50, and I want to change my revenue type here as well. So I'm just going to get rid of my sales type 005 and just change it to 001. If you use cost centers, you can just click in and select your cost center. If not, you can just leave that area blank, click create, and that's a nice, quick and easy setup for your membership. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is customizing our email template. So I have a poll question that I'd like you to answer. So we're just going to display a poll question for you in just one moment. Okay, and we're just going to wait for the results to come back. Okay, just give you a couple more minutes and then we're going to display we're just going to actually do a display. Okay, so our poll question was when you're actually emailing your invoices out through, when you're actually emailing your invoices, are you using a logo? So it's good to see that the majority of you are using the logo, the email logo, which is great, but there's a small percentage of you that are not. So just for your benefit, I'm just going to show you where you can add in the link in your email template so that you can use your logo when you're emailing out your invoices. Okay, so we're going to go back to sales. And I'm just going to go back into invoicing once more, just so I can bring up my related items. So here I've got my, my invoice email template. So if I just click into this area, okay, so at the moment in this area I can actually change my the default email address. So at the moment it's invoicing@mailer.twinfield.com, but if you want it to actually come from your organization, you can simply just click on where it's displaying the email address and it will bring up these extra boxes for you. And all you need to do is to type in your email address. Okay, so example, I'll just quickly type in my email address. And click verify. So it doesn't really take that long for it to come back and verify your email address. If you want to actually change the hyperlinks and the wording in the subject field, we have this little variable box. So if you would prefer to see the customer name first, then what we can do is just remove the information which is in the subject field. So we just highlight and remove the information. And the first variable I'm going to choose is going to be the customer name. And I'm just going to put in there that it's type the word invoice and then do a space and then just pick on invoice number. Okay, so it's just got the display round slightly differently. And if you wish to just update or change the information in the main body of your email, then it's exactly the same thing, just free type, and where you would like to put the link, then you can just click on it and insert the link. But for those of you that are not using a logo embedded in your email template, then what you would need to do is just click on this edit HTML source here, and it will just open up a little box for you, and you can see that your wording has changed, tells you about the font face that you were using, and you can see that it's just in a little bit of in HTML language. So I've actually just copied one of my URL addresses from the CCH support site, and what I want to use is this Waters Kluwer logo. So what you would do is actually right click on the logo and what you need to use is copy image location. Okay, and once that is set, then what you would need to do is use this link, which I'm going to share with you all, so that you can actually have a go at using these, those of you that are not using it at the moment. So I've actually just typed in the information in a notepad file. So the information that I have here, I can actually simply just copy it and paste it back into Twinfield. So I've just done a couple of carriage returns, and I'm just going to just paste that information in. So when you receive the link, you need to make sure that you have the open bracket, the A, the href equals, and then the https://twinfield.co.uk is basically the site that I would go to log in as. And then you've got the image source, and the image source is basically where I've right-clicked on the logo to actually get the link for that logo. And then you'll need to make sure that you have in the section here, which is the Twinfield @amp, and then where I've got the semicolon, the part of the website that I'm on references to CCH, which I've put in this section here, and then I've just typed in United and Kingdom, and then equals, and then this is basically the font size, height and width. So now if I just click save, it will take me back to my desktop, and if I go back into my email templates, okay, I can see that my logo has now appeared. So we can actually opt to do this for both. So if I wanted to do this again for my PDF, then I just need to make sure that I click Edit HTML Source, and I've just carriage returned a couple of times and just paste that link in and just repeat the step and just save. And then if I send out any of my emails via a link, or if I send out my invoice via a PDF, then both of them will just have my logo embedded there for me until you're ready to change it. So if you no longer want that logo to be shown, or your logo's changed, you can simply either just remove the logo by just going back into the Edit HTML Source and just highlight and delete, or if where the location has changed, you just need to actually just insert in where it's changed and just remove the old logo source and the URL address out of this link. Okay, so now would be a great time to run through and ask if anybody has got any questions, because we've gone through and we've had a look at our invoicing, we've looked at our customers, articles, we've had a look at our timelines and also the template there as well. So if anybody has any questions, this would be a great time. But as always, we do appreciate your feedback, and we'd just like to say thank you for taking your time to view the webinars. And just to let you know that our last webinar is scheduled for Friday the 18th of March. So if you do have any suggestions of other webinars that you would like to see in the future, please let us know. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions that have come through. Okay, so just bear with me just one moment. Okay, so is it possible to edit the information in the article when creating the invoice, such as the VAT amount? Right, okay, so if the VAT amount is going to be linked to which VAT rate that you're using. Unfortunately, on that field, there isn't a little padlock to open and close where you can say that you want to go in and edit the VAT amount at the moment, but that is something that we are looking into. Okay, so we've got, for example, we need to reverse and calculate the total amount to get us to pre-VAT price. Right, okay, so yes, it's the same thing where it's just out by a couple of pennies, or it could be a couple of pence. Right, okay, so that's one thing I will feed back on to product development for you, Meg, but thank you for asking your question. Right, okay, so Susan said an invoice each month. How does this work? Okay, so what I'm going to do, Susan, I'm just going to go back into Twinfield, so just bear with me one moment. Okay, so let me just go back into sales and let's go back into my invoices. Okay, so under my to be sent bucket, I have an invoice here for a new invoice here for the Pioneer. So what it will do, it will actually just hold it until it's ready to send for me. So there's nothing really that I need to do. Twinfield will automatically create the invoice for me, and I can click into it and make adjustments to that invoice as well. So it will just keep creating an invoice which will recur on a monthly basis, and then I can click into that invoice and send it. Okay, so it's not going to send it out automatically for you, but it will create the reoccurrence. Okay, so thank you, Susan. Okay, so James is asking whether it's possible to set up more than one template. So at the moment, there is only one template which is available, but I'm hoping this is something that we will be able to offer in the future. But I will definitely pass your, I'll definitely pass your question on to product development, James. So thank you. Okay, so Graham's just asking, is it possible to send more than one invoice to a customer in one email? So that's another great question as well. So at the moment, in the invoicing field, you can only type in one customer's email address. So at the moment, it's only one. But yet again, these are great points, and I will actually feed that back to product development as well. Okay, so Marvin's asking, how do you get rid of errors once resolved? It says right on the top right-hand side of the screen. Right, okay, so I'm a little bit confused. I'm not quite sure which errors. Could it be that it's just a posting error that your invoice hasn't posted? 9 times out of 10, you do get an option to repost back. But Mervyn, if you could just give me a little bit more clues to what you mean by your question, then I will definitely answer that for you. Right, okay. Right, Mervyn, I've got your second question is how do you allocate a nominal code when you're free typing in the description? Right, so if you're doing what I call an invoice on the fly, where you're just typing in your invoice, you don't have the scope to change the invoice number. The invoice number is actually picked up from your system settings where you have a default code for sales, and it will always go to that code. So if you wish your transaction to go to a different nominal code, you will need to create an article. Okay, so Bernadette is asking, if you've created an invoice but could not post the invoice in Twinfield as an article, was not yet set up, invoice was posted manually on Twinfield, is there a way to remove the posting failure notification? Bernadette, sometimes it does give you the option to repost the invoice. If it's a case that the notification isn't moving, the best thing would be to contact the support team, and they will be able to hopefully get that flag removed for you. Okay, so I've got a message here from Bernie, a question here from Bernie. If the client disputes an invoice, how can you mark the invoice as disputed? Okay, so Bernie, the best thing to do is create the invoice as normal and post it. Once you send the invoice, it will post it through as a final transaction. What you could do is run your supplier transaction report, filter in to that transaction and mark it as, and you can just tick a flag to say not in payment run, but I'll show you this. So if I've got my invoice here for the Pioneer, if I just go into my reports and under customer, let me go into my customer transactions, for example. Okay, so I'm just going to pick on any one of my suppliers. So I've got this invoice here for the Pioneer. I can click into it and opt to view the transaction. And here you basically have not in collection run. So I don't know whether or not you're automated and doing payments, but here was where you should be able to just click in to that transaction. So at the moment it's not letting me click into this one, not a very good example because it's already been paid. So let me just find one which is unpaid and let's see if we can get that working. Okay, right, so I have an invoice right here at the top for the Pioneer again. So let's just view the transaction on this one. Okay, sorry, I need to find an invoice which is available and not one that's already matched. Okay, third time lucky, let's try another one. There we go. Okay, so I was wondering why we had our little padlock which was missing. So we've got our option here, not in collection run. So if it doesn't let you click in there first time, just click on the padlock and then try once again and it will put that on the invoice for you. Okay, so the only way this is going to work is if you're actually doing automated collection runs, and when the invoice is marked as not in collection run, it just won't be pulled up for payment or collection. Okay, so the last question that we have is from Graham. Okay, so Graham's asking, would a reoccurring invoice be updated to reflect any changes to articles, i.e. if the unit price changed? Right, okay, so that's a really good question. You can actually go in and amend the next invoice and change the units. However, it's always going to take it from, in my opinion, the original reoccurring transaction. So it might just be that you would have to remove the reoccurrence on that invoice and then place the new reoccurrence on the transaction that you have updated. Okay, well, I'd really like to thank everybody for attending the webinar and all of their questions. If I didn't get back to answering one of your questions, don't worry, we will be creating a PDF document with all of the questions raised today, and that will get sent out to you along with the recording and with the link for the email template as well. So thank you everyone for attending. Have a great weekend and hope to see you on the next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.